Two things I absolutely loved growing up as a kid were sports and Legos, which is why Oyo were the perfect toy for me. What is Oyo, you may ask? Well, Oyo were Lego-like figurines that were based off of various athletes, which had a few different features to help differentiate themselves from, say, your traditional Lego minifigure. These would come in these little display boxes, making them perfect to have on your shelf or even take them out and play with. I had a lot of these growing up, and I used to get them for Christmas as a stocking stuffer or even for my birthday. But then all of a sudden I stopped getting them. They stopped posting on social media, they stopped releasing new products, heck, you can't even go on the website anymore. And I was thinking to myself, what happened? These things used to be the biggest thing and they were licensed with MLB, NFL, NHL, and now all of a sudden you can't buy them anymore. And after doing some research, I realized the story is actually really interesting. So in today's video, I'm going to dive into what happened to Oyo Sports toys. As recounted on the Oyo Sports website, in 2011, Tom Scripps took his son to a Red Sox game at Fenway Park. During the game, his 6-year-old son asked for a toy, only for the two to find out that the souvenir shop did not sell toys. Scripps said in a News Times article that he was fresh off of building Legos with his sons, and he remembered how enamored they were with the Lego minifigures. They didn't even really care about the Lego, they just wanted the little guys that came with it. Reflecting on his experiences, Scripps then had the idea to create Lego-like minifigures that resembled athletes. Now you may be asking, Eric, didn't Lego do something like this? Well, sort of. Lego did have a similar idea with their NBA line in 2003, and that lasted until 2004. This line featured some of the game's biggest stars like Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and even Allen Iverson. And did you know you can get Shaq's head on eBay for $5? Well, now you know, I guess. The legs had springs in them and were unable to walk like a traditional figure. They only really made sense to play with if you had the Lego Sports NBA Arena set. It kind of looks like a nightmare to play with, to be honest. These served as a display piece more than anything. Noticing a glaring hole in the market, Scripps, a mechanical engineer by trade, went to work and created a figure of his own. He developed figures that slightly differentiated themselves from traditional Lego figures by having rotating forearms and bendable knees. These toys were also compatible with Legos, so you could play with Oyos while playing with Legos. Scripps had this idea of the figurine, but he couldn't just use the likeness of the players without the proper licensing. Luckily, Scripps was put into contact with someone from GMR Marketing who put him in contact with MLB and NFL executives to pitch the product. According to the Boston Globe, he pitched his toy to Major League Baseball and they absolutely loved it. And before he knew it, his toy was already licensed with the MLB and it was in MLB stadiums and stores. Despite the licensing deal, Scripps was actually still working his day job. His big break, funny enough, came while he was at work when someone he worked with invested $1 million into his company. By that point, he realized, you know what, maybe I should do this Oyo thing full time. By 2012, Oyo was producing figurines for the NFL and MLB and were in 3,000 stores across the country, according to the Boston Herald. In 2014, outside parties saw the success of Oyo and took interest. Boston Seed Capital and Atlas Venture combined to invest $3 million, according to Business Wire. Mandalay Sports Media invested an additional $11 million later that year, according to The Sun. With 160 employees and figurines licensed by MLS, MLB, NFL, and NHL, things were looking up for this company. And now I think is a pretty good time to talk about these figures and what made them so popular. Player likeness. I think that was absolutely huge. Having specific players created an incentive for people to buy them. I know I bought these figures as a kid specifically for the player, and I was even able to dig some up. Here we have a Nationals Bryce Harper figurine. He's unfortunately missing one of his hands and likely will be out for the season. Here we have a Brandon Marshall figure. I liked him a lot as a kid. Very fun to watch as a Bear. And Jay Cutler, who I don't even know why I still have this figure because he was responsible for a lot of my grief as a young Bears fan. I remember as a kid I had generic Bears bobbleheads and generic stuffed animals, but I always preferred the figures that were actually of the player. I think the reason was because I idolized athletes growing up. Being able to have something that resembled them was so special, which is always why I preferred buying a jersey over a traditional team shirt. Oyo capitalized on the player likeness idea by having stars like Derek Jeter and Tom Brady get their own figures. Pretty much every team was featured by Oyo. As a Washington Nationals fan, it was really cool seeing players like Adam LaRoche and Gio Gonzalez get their own figures, even though traditionally they didn't really receive outside media attention. I think that's what made Oyo so special, is that they didn't just attach to the game's biggest stars, but they also kind kind of had those more kind of niche, smaller fan favorite players too, so they really had figures for everybody. I remember as a kid the idea of collecting all of these seemed fun in theory, but quickly proved very difficult because they're around $10 a figure and had several different variations per figure. Let's say you're a Peyton Manning fan. You want all the Oyos? Well, you're gonna have to collect all the different variations, including his Super Bowl Oyo, AFC Championship Oyo, home jersey, away jersey, alternate jersey, all-time passing yards, all-time passing TD, Colts throwback, college throwback figure. You get the point. Of course, not every player is gonna have as many as Peyton Manning, but you could see how this might be hard to keep up with. The Worcester Journal reported that Oyo bought their pieces blank and in bulk, allowing them to respond quickly to the latest trends. Cubs win the World Series in 2016? Well, here's a commemorative Oyo. Oh, America's least favorite team, the New England Patriots, win the Super Bowl again? Here's an Oyo of Tom Brady with a Super Bowl hat. A player gets traded or called up? Here's an Oyo. A player gets drafted? Here's an Oyo. The rate they were producing these was really impressive, and the variations were really cool. They were also constantly creating new figures, creating mascots, throwbacks of pro players in college, throwbacks of MLB players in their minor league uniforms, and they even started releasing sets as well, and wow, they're definitely not beating the "these look like Lego" allegations. Another thing that made these figures so popular was their online presence. They had a dedicated following on Facebook and YouTube where they would post stop motion videos of these figures in action. I loved these videos as a kid because as someone who made stop motions growing up, this is what I wanted my stop motions to look like. Let's just say, I never came close to this. These stop motions were a great ad because they demonstrated the figure's functionality while also creating some iconic moments like the butt fumble, or even the play when Pete Carroll should have run the ball with the best running back in the league. They even had a video showcasing Derek Jeter's top 10 moments, but in Oyo form, when he announced his retirement. A lot of these videos were done by the YouTube channel The Four Monkeys, which was a channel I really enjoyed as a kid. It really seems like Oyo picked the perfect creator to work with in promoting these videos because their stop motions are so good. The attention to detail is amazing. I'll link their channel down below as well as the official Oyo channel. Alright, so back to the company themselves. Things started to look up for the Acton, Massachusetts company. They finalized a deal with Marlborough, Massachusetts. That's a hard town to pronounce. The town agreed that if they moved into this new office, the company would receive tax incentives. But according to Wicked Local, in return, Oyo had to provide an additional 100 jobs to the area. So with a new office in the works and a popular product, what could go wrong? The first cause for concern was when the previous CEO, Tom Scripps, was replaced by Scott Healy in 2015. It is unclear why Scripps was removed by investors, but it seems they moved to Healy because of his previous experience in digital spaces. It was clear that investors wanted to move into digital media. The Sports Business Journal reported that Healy wanted to take Oyo to a, quote, toys to life philosophy, similar to that of Skylanders or even UB Funkies, if you remember those. You buy the toy and you play with the toy in said game. However, the original licensing agreement with the leagues only involved toys, so if Oyo wanted to create a game, they would need to pay more money to the leagues to get an additional license, and they just weren't going to do that. So here you have investors who put their money into this project because they thought they were going to create a virtual experience, and that just wasn't going to happen. Things only got worse. In 2016, the Biz Journal reported that Oyo fired half of its workforce. Jeremy Shea told the Boston Globe that it was getting expensive to produce these products in America. In the same article, Scripps said that brick and mortar stores were just more reluctant to take on the product. Even though the Oyos themselves were selling well due to the war between brick and mortar stores and Amazon, these stores had products on their shelves that weren't doing too great. Scripps was sold back the company in 2016, but the company had taken on $6 million in debt. They had to file for bankruptcy in mid-2017 and was sold to David Solomon in 2018 in a bankruptcy auction. Solomon unfortunately inherited a mess. By the end of the 2019 NFL season, the license Oyo had with the NFL had expired. The several employees that were still working there stopped receiving their paychecks, and then one morning they showed up and they couldn't even get into the office. Oh, and by the way, then they got sued by Lego. Right now, currently, the company has no employees. As of 2020, I found the Lego lawsuit was transferred to the District of Massachusetts, and I couldn't find any additional information information on where the lawsuit stands currently. And let's be honest, it's clear that the Oyo figures clearly resemble Lego minifigures in some capacity. I don't think anybody is denying that. But Oyo is doing things differently than Lego. When Lego previously did their NBA figures, they only had a handful of players, and they couldn't get them out at the rate that Oyo could. The concept of adding new players and features constantly was what made Oyo Oyo. And part of me was thinking, okay, well, Lego is kind of punching down here, but at the same time, these figures do look like Lego minifigures, so it's one of those situations where I really do see both sides. Regardless of how that lawsuit goes, unfortunately, I don't see this toy coming back. I don't want this video to be perceived as negative because ultimately I loved these toys as a kid. I found how everything played just really unfortunate. I think everyone at Oyo really wanted to create a sports toy that was for everyone. And let's be honest, they did. Whether you were a collector or maybe a younger fan that just wanted to play with them, anybody could enjoy this toy. It's just a disappointing ending, really. But did you play with these growing up? Please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear if you have any stories from these toys. And also in the description down below, I'm linking all the videos that I used and all of the articles that I used to find information. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you haven't already because I will be making weekly videos. Yes, I'm actually making weekly videos for once. So subscribe. Okay. Alright, did you subscribe yet? Okay, this is stupid. I'm going. Bye.